Hi, everyone. It's Tracy. I'm coming to you live from New Hampshire Writers Project headquarters, and we are here today for another live broadcast with one of our featured members from the Holiday Showcase. Today, we're talking with Lisa Braxton. How are you, Lisa?
I'm doing very well. Tracy, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks. I'm really glad to have you here and learn a little bit more about what is your first book. I actually thought it was your second, so I'm very interested to learn about this book. And before we get into more information with Lisa, if you are not familiar with what the Holiday Showcase is, at our website, nhwritersproject.org, it is a wonderful collection of over 55 books by our member authors. And it's to highlight their great work and to give you some unique gift ideas for that book lover on your list. And it is also a great way to support the local literary community. So, Lisa, before we learn more about your book, tell us about yourself. I know that you've written a couple of books, so tell us about your career as a writer.
Well, my career as a writer actually began in childhood. I wasn't paid to write at that point, of course, but I was writing stories since childhood. I would read. I was an avid reader, voracious reader, and 4 or 5, 6, 7 years old, mom would say, "Lisa, go out and get some fresh air, play with the children out there." I said, "No, mommy, I want to read, and when I grow up, I'm going to be a novelist." Only it took me about 40 some years to fulfill that dream, and before I got there, I was a newspaper journalist, newspaper reporter, radio, TV, and all that helped me to develop the skills to write novels, to write short stories, the novel, and a memoir.
That's amazing. I love that you knew at a very early age what you wanted to be and you just never lost that focus. A lot of people will try so many different things and then, find a roundabout way to it. So that's amazing. Okay. Well, like I mentioned, I thought that this was your second book, but it's actually your first book. And, tell us what was the inspiration behind the talking drum. And I'd really be curious too to learn how this led into the book about the raindrops. Remind me the name of the book.
Dancing Between the Raindrops, a
That's
daughter's
the one that I
reflections
was
on
very familiar with. Yeah.
loss.
So, like,
Yes.
are those two books? Is one a continuation? Is that story a continuation of the Talking Drum?
No, but there's inspiration from the same source in both books. I wanted to write a novel, and I had no idea how to do that. So, in my mid 40s, I enrolled at a MFA program, low residency MFA program at Southern New Hampshire University. And as I was writing this story about, a man and a woman in a bookstore, and they were long lost lovers, that sort of thing, it evolved into a story that was really inspired by my parents because mom and dad owned a clothing store beginning in 1969, and this went on into the 2000s. And the neighborhood was an urban neighborhood. There were a lot of challenges there. And now that neighborhood is being redeveloped, and this has been going on for some time in Bridgeport, Connecticut. So they inspired my two main characters, who are a young couple, late 60s, early 70s, trying to make a protest bookstore thrive in an area that they know is going to undergo urban redevelopment and gentrification. And also my other book, The Talking Drum, I mean, not The Talking Drum, Dancing Between the Raindrops, I wrote that as my mom and dad were declining in health. And I was reminiscing about growing up in Bridgeport with them, different issues we faced, racism, and just being a family. And that I published that after they had passed away. And there's some caregiving in there too, caregiving essays, and how my dog was it's just so nurturing for both my mom and dad. But the
Hmm.
talking drum is really inspired by mom and dad. Then I have other characters in it as well. But without me realizing subconsciously, they are all threaded throughout the talking drum.
Well, now, and did you? I ask this regularly of fiction authors. Did you use your personality at all with any of the characters in the Talking Drum?
I have one character, Sydney. She's the wife of Malachi, and they're the newlywed couple operating this bookstore. And she happens to be a journalist. She was going to law school, but then she dropped out so she could help her husband support the business that he wanted to run this bookstore. And she's a journalist and she's also a photographer. Just so happens that journalism and photography are two of my loves, my two of my passions. Personality wise, she might be, I think she's a combination of my mother and me based
Okay.
on her personality.
Oh, I love that blending. Okay, I figured there might be a little flavor of you in there somewhere. So, well, Talk to me about the themes throughout your book. You gave, gentrification. You talked about a few other themes. What other kind of universal themes can people expect in your writing and specifically in the Talking Drum?
One universal theme is that unfortunately we've seen this recently. We've seen this way back. The voiceless are the ones that get stepped on, I think. In this case, in my book, the immigrant neighborhood is being taken over for redevelopment. And they form a committee based on their the so-called the unofficial mayor of their fictional city, Uncle Mustafa, who wants to fight the efforts to take their neighborhood. These are people who are recently moved to the US, and the only home they really know after what they've been through is their neighborhood. And it's tough on them. And I know that we have over the years, you see media reports about different neighborhoods that are going through gentrification, and we see the improvements and why it was done, but not so much about the people, not digging deep into their lives. And how some people, when they're uprooted, it's overwhelming and it's too much for them, and they could not fight the system. That's one thing. Also, that history repeats itself, and the past is really not over. The themes I
Right.
talk about in 1970 in my book, they're happening right now. And back then, there was a lot of civil rights protests going on and vocalism. And we see a lot of civil protests going on now, too, because things are cyclical. So, one of the big messages for me in this book is that things don't really change. They ebb and they flow. And we have to remember, people who are voiceless are often powerless. They try to push and get power, but ultimately they end up at the short end of the stick, unfortunately.
Yeah, those are some very powerful themes. Wonderful. Well, and I know you have a favorite passage, chapter, section of your book, and you said you would share with us. We'd love to
Oh,
hear
yes,
it.
several people have asked me who my favorite character is, and I don't know, but I thought I didn't know, but I think Omar is my favorite character. He's a drummer from Senegal. He got a scholarship to come to the US, Rotary Scholarship to go to Howard University. He had to drop out because his wife, his girlfriend, she was going to have a baby, so they got married. But he wants to be the drumming ambassador of the world. Back then in the late 60s, African drumming was not like it is now. There are lots of people who said they were embarrassed by that. That is uncivilized music. And he
Hmm.
wanted to change that. So I'll read a passage from the chapter that he's introduced with his wife. And you might be able to see that there are some issues that he and his wife are facing.
Okay.
6 blocks away and across the Bellport River Bridge in Petite Africa, Omar Basari read the notice that his wife, Natalie, held inches from his nose. The Basaris had to pay 3 months back rent by the end of the month, including late fees, or be evicted. That's an idiot, Omar muttered as he returned his attention to the peanut paste he was cooking on the stove. Fullerton does not care a fig about us. That's the landlord. Natalie flung the notice along with the rest of the day's mail and her canvas book bag onto the kitchen counter. An accounting textbook, the Bellport Gazette, and some sheet music slid out. She tugged at the sleeves of her goose down jacket and hung it on a hook in the hallway. I knew a rent strike was a bad idea, she fumed. Why did you listen to those people? Basaris rented a cramped two-bedroom apartment in the Commonwealth Arms, a pre-World War I building on King Street in the heart of Petite Africa, owned by a white businessman, James Fullerton. They moved there 6 months ago when a fire burned down their three-story rooming house on the corner of Pleasant and Garfield Avenues, 5 blocks away. Omar's Uncle Mustafa had found them their first apartment a year and a half ago when the couple moved to town after they both dropped out of Howard University. After the fire, Mustafa stepped in again, negotiating a reduced price from Fullerton for the couple to live at the Commonwealth Arms. This allowed Omar to cover most of the household expenses with the $30 to $40 a week he averaged from his drumming performances. Natalie was studying to be an accountant, dreamed of acting in theater and film. She had white classmates at Bellport College who got experience and some extra money doing bit parts in TV commercials. But casting companies rarely chose Black performers, so she settled for doing voiceovers and singing jingles for radio. She barely made enough to pay for her college courses and private voice and acting lessons. Not much was left for anything else. So you might be able to see there's some tension in their marriage. There's some cultural differences. Money is an issue, and he is in a way floundering in this fictional city that's in Massachusetts on the Atlantic seaboard,
Yep.
and he wants to bring drumming to that community, but also his neighborhood is being looked at seriously to be taken over for urban redevelopment. So he's got a lot of stuff going on there.
Well, and I love your character development. It's so vivid as well. So I'm curious, like, what kind of process do you go through when you're developing these characters in your book?
Well, one thing I would say that one character is the town itself. So Petite Africa, I I just walked around some parts of Boston, the Boston area where I am, Grove Hall, and other areas where there are a lot of immigrants, and I got a flavor for the smells of the spices and the music and those things. I also took drumming lessons from a drumming lessons from a master drummer who's from West Africa.
Wow.
So I was doing the drumming. I was watching his personality, his just the way he took command of the room. He used and met other drummers, talked with them, and watched also. I watched videos on YouTube of people who are from that part of Senegal and the Wolof, the language that my character Omar speaks.
Your research sounds like a lot of fun. Yeah, your research sounds like a lot of fun. It sounds, especially if you're getting involved with the drumming and stuff yourself. Did you enjoy all of these parts of putting your story together and learning from an immersive perspective?
It was a big adventure, so I would say I
Yeah.
did enjoy it. I even went to a Senegalese restaurant and tried different dishes, which are in the book. They're also because he loves to cook, so he's cooking those dishes in the book.
See, I love that when you write with all of the senses, and so you experience it and what people are smelling and tasting and hearing and touching. Yeah, that's wonderful. I love that. Well, tell
Yes.
me, Lisa, so that our listening audience will know, who do you feel is a good audience for this book? Who would really enjoy this read?
I think anyone who enjoys reading historical fiction from early 1970s would enjoy the book. Anyone who is politically active and wants to be reminded of what it was like or learn what it was like in the late 60s, early 70s, the activism. And if you want to be immersed in African culture, just immersed in my characters in general. I have very interesting characters. They all have different personalities. If you want to immerse, especially over the holidays, if you have a few days or time off to sit in a chair and just immerse yourself in my characters and see where their journey goes. So I think it would appeal to just about anyone.
That makes a lot of sense. Like I agree with you too. Your characters, they just have wonderful personalities, and the development, it is so rich. It's easy to tell. So, if you're just joining us, we are talking with Lisa Braxton, author of The Talking Drum. And Lisa is one of our featured authors at the New Hampshire Writer Project's Holiday Showcase. You can find the address below on the ticker on the bottom of your screen. And on our website, we are featuring over 55 of our author members and their wonderful books for the holiday season. And if you're looking for a unique gift or that hard to find gift for someone on your list, then I encourage you to come over, check out our website, and support our local literary community. So, Lisa, it has been wonderful talking with you today. And before I let you go, I'm just curious, is there anything else we should know about you or your work?
Well, you can find me at lisabraxton.com and my books, both of my books, my novel and my memoir were published by female-owned presses, small presses, female-owned
Love it.
presses. So it was lovely to work with the presses that support and are run by women.
I agree. Do you want to give a shout out to your publisher?
Nana Publications in Toronto,
Oh,
and
okay. Wonderful.
nana.ca. That's where,
Wonderful.
and also my books can be found on Amazon and other major online booksellers.
Perfect. Well, like Lisa said, head over to lisabraxton.com where you can learn about all of her books and you can learn more about her and just the wonderful journey she's had as a writer. So, thank you everyone for joining us today. I really appreciate it. Lisa, great talking with you. Thanks for taking time out of your day.
Well, thanks for this opportunity.
Absolutely. Happy holidays, everyone. Thanks for watching.